came here today?
I did not.
I have no.
I should.
Before the week, everyone was talking about the YNW Melly trial. Here's what happened. The judge almost rejected the evidence, but allowing it to proceed could be a game changer. The jury did not enjoy seeing YNW Melly's text messages displayed in court the other day. The state claims that the most important part of the YNW Melly trial is that YNW Melly and Portland believe that Melly believes he is a monster with evil intentions and that his mother is the B word. Allegedly orchestrated a drive-by shooting in order to hide the fact that they killed YNW Melly. This investigator's shocking revelation, which you've heard a dozen times already, was the most crucial aspect of the trial. The detective who appeared during the trial and acted out the entire scene for the jury concluded that their friends, YNW Juvie and YNW Sock Chaser, were killed by gunfire from inside the car rather than from the outside. Regarding YNW Juvie's fate, stating that he was shot in the head from the left side at close range while facing forward. They even included unpleasant details to make it even more incriminating, admitting that the entrance wound and bullet trajectories are pretty damn compelling. The jury had already seen the surveillance footage, which showed YNW Melly relaxing in the rear left seat of the Jeep, YNW Juvie in the front seat, and YNW Sock Chaser in the back right. Confirmed that both victims had been shot in the head from the left side, but worry not, there are still some small victories for YNW Melly along the way. It turns out that the prosecution made a grave error by failing to disclose a second forensics report, which is a grave violation. As a result, that crucial piece of evidence was not included in the victory that YNW Melly was able to enjoy. Despite the chaos and the gravity of the situation, he is definitely in a very precarious position. If he is found guilty, YNW Melly faces a life sentence in prison without the possibility of parole, or possibly even the death penalty. The YNW Melly murder case has resumed with full force after a week-long break, and it appears that we will be witnessing this ongoing spectacle for another long month. The intriguing revelations keep coming in now. There is a person named Trayvon Glass who worked on the beats for YNW Sock Chaser. Trayvon Glass didn't mince words and told the truth about what really happened at the studio that fateful night. Additionally, Trayvon Glass made it clear that he was sober throughout the hearing, even if he kind of wished he hadn't. Did you smoke before you came here today? I did not. I'm this guy. Reveals that they had a recording session at a studio that lasted for 12 hours. However, let's face it, they couldn't handle the full 12 hours. And as we all know, fatigue sat in, and they started feeling sleepy. What's more interesting is that they actually left the studio very late at night. It's been quite the roller coaster, and the producer didn't hold back when he shared what he saw on the surveillance tapes at the studio following that recording session in Fort Lauderdale back in 2018. These guys were close members of YNW Melly's crew, the YNW gang, which is why things are going so crazy right now with YNW Melly. Trayvon Glass witnessed YNW Melly and another rapper Fredo smash into a red Mitsubishi and a Jeep Compass. Prosecutors wanted to have Fredo testify, but Fredo had previously made it clear that he had no intention of doing so. Trayvon Glass and his team left the studio and went to YNW Melly's house before ending up at Fredo's house to mourn the loss of their friends. This is where things take an interesting turn, even though he may still appear in court if he is subpoenaed. Trayvon Glass saw that YNW Melly had changed since the recording session earlier that evening, so he asked the prosecutors to bring him back to the main topic since he could always plead the fifth if they asked him to. When you saw him at the studio, did he change his clothes? Yes, he did. He wasn't wearing the same clothes as before, and neither were you. Do you remember what he was wearing? At that moment, he had on a pair of shorts, but later, when questioned about what transpired at Fredo's place, Trayvon Glass suddenly stopped cooperating. He claimed he was too busy with G-Brief to provide any meaningful information. This sudden refusal to cooperate raises some serious concerns. Why would someone so abruptly withdraw from providing details if they had nothing to hide? Now, let's closely examine why both defendants would alter their clothing and why their actions don't align with those of innocent individuals. Typically, one would expect people uninvolved in a crime to rush to the hospital to check on their injured friends. But instead of doing so, they deliberately avoided testifying. Instead, they dressed up and cruised around for a significant 40 minutes. What was the reason behind this? Why would they choose to do something so seemingly irrelevant when they should have been more concerned about their friends? This type of behavior only serves to increase skepticism and casts doubt on their innocence. It's almost as if they were deliberately trying to obscure crucial details. Beyond the change of clothing, a lot of evidence has surfaced over the past few days. Evidence that the prosecution is diligently working to prove belonged to YNW Melly. The trial has largely revolved around establishing the connection between his phone and the scene of the alleged crime. One of the most significant aspects under scrutiny has been the positioning of the phones in relation to the discovered bullet casings. To gain more clarity on this, the prosecution brought in Miramar detective Mark Merritt, a key figure in the investigation. His testimony and insights play a crucial role in establishing a timeline and linking Melly's phone to the crime scene. The prosecution is making an all-out effort to solidify the connection between YNW Melly's phone and the car where the crime supposedly took place. This time, they have gathered even more incriminating evidence against him, and they are determined to ensure they get the most precise location estimates possible. Their entire argument heavily relies on the phone records, which they claim will demonstrate his involvement. However, this also opens the door for the defense to challenge the accuracy of the data. Phone records, while useful, do not always provide pinpoint precision regarding a person's exact location. This fact might serve as a crucial counterpoint in the defense's strategy, as they may argue that the prosecution's claims rest on a technological method that isn't as precise as it is being portrayed. One journalist who has been closely following the case and has first-hand knowledge of its developments continues to provide insights into the intricacies of the trial. With the emergence of new evidence and conflicting testimonies, the case has become even more complex. The defense will likely question the reliability of the forensic data, and their argument may revolve around the notion that the prosecution is relying too heavily on circumstantial evidence. If the accuracy of the phone location data is brought into question, it could shift the balance in favor of the defense. Despite these uncertainties, the prosecution remains steadfast in its approach. They are intent on painting a clear picture of what transpired and are determined to prove that YNW Melly was indeed present at the scene of the crime. As the trial progresses, the unfolding evidence and testimonies will play a crucial role in shaping the final verdict. Whether or not the prosecution's strategy will hold up against the defense's counterarguments remains to be seen, but one thing is clear: this case is far from straightforward, and its outcome could hinge on the smallest details. To provide additional information on Twitter, he first tweeted that Detective Mark Merritt reported that YNW Melly's cell phone was discovered in the right passenger rear's back floorboard. He then tweeted that Detective Mark Merritt reported that YNW Sock Chaser's phone was located 100 meters from the shell casings, and YW Melly's phone was located 400 meters from the casings. There was a lengthy discussion about CDR records, which stands for Detailed Records, later in the detective's testimony, and the expert explained the various columns and their meaning in these documents was crucial because the prosecution wanted to demonstrate how relevant the information was to the case. Additionally, Fredo Bang was brought up because of his correspondence with YNW Melly before and after the events involving Juvie and Sock Chaser. There seems to be a connection between their phones and YNW Melly's home in Fredo Bang, as we know that W&W Melly was at his house on the morning of the murders, and Sock Chaser's producer Glass attested to this in Miramar, Florida.
Conversations between Mr. Demons and his mother where he's calling her the B word and all sorts and manner of disrespect that is clearly off-putting to anyone. And under the pretext that they're trying to prove this phone belongs and is being used by Mr. Demons.
The case then took a rather confusing turn as the prosecutor and Detective Merritt looked over the various data points on the phone, but let's face it, if you're a juror, the entire context may be hard to understand because they mention a lot of things. 33029 I'm on my way right now blood taking another card out of her deck. The prosecutor introduced Western Union and showed a receipt bearing YNW Melly's name and phone number. This was another way to ensure that the phone in question actually belonged to Melly and not someone else. facts that don't seem to be directly related to the prosecutor's main point, but this is where things get interesting. They chose to bring up the message exchange between Melly and Fredo, which was about money and organizing future tours. It seems like they were trying to give insight into their financial dealings and upcoming endeavors. Not only did Fredo's words have an impact, but there was also a lengthy discussion about the messages and phone numbers Melly exchanged with several. Along with building relationships and motivations, we also witnessed a hint of conflict between Melly and his mother, who had their share of arguments, and Melly didn't hold back from expressing his displeasure. Things got worse when Melly's mother was threatened by his juvie sister, forcing her to hire a bodyguard for protection. Don't believe me when I say that there were numerous other messages that made you pause and consider whether Melly actually did execute. As the jurors learned during their court appearance on Tuesday, July 11th, that there was a great deal of animosity brewing among the rappers in the YNW Young Nigga world group, Melly appeared rather displeased that his fellow rappers were benefiting financially and socially. Take a look at this particular message. For example, Portland says about what Melly did. It's like a bombshell that hits you right in the gut. He did one of the realest things in my life. Receiving recognition for his artistic contributions to their collective work. These messages, which revealed a side of Melly's relationship that the jurors had not previously seen, were the first indication that Jamal Maurice Demons YNW Melly and his eventual victims, Christopher Thomas Jr. YNW Juvie and Anthony Williams YNW Sack Chaser, were not on good terms and had a strained relationship, even though the defense attorney asserts that the messages were not properly verified. Judge John Murphy allowed the jurors to review the opening statements. The defense lawyer emphasized that Melly had no motive to kill his friends. The jurors now have to determine whether the text messages that were displayed in court on Tuesday can even be taken into account. The detective Mark explained how he built the case that led to the conclusion that Melly is the one who killed YNW Juvie and YNW Sack Chaser without providing any justification for the killings. In a communication from August 2018, Maurice Demons reportedly expressed his frustration by saying, "You guys are acting like the bosses, and my flow isn't worth it if I don't get credit in payment." The investigator explained that Melly was asking for recognition and money for his contributions to the field of study. "I'll always repay you for everything you've done for me, every idea, and all that will always be brothers," Melly asked in another message that may have contained the code. It's important to keep in mind that this conversation does not prove that Melly had a gun in his possession, especially not at the time of the killings. The defense asked the judge to drop some of the charges against him because of evidence that came to light after the fact, such as when Melly asked his mother to buy him a Glock. The judge granted the objection, meaning that piece of evidence would not be used against Melly. A new set of messages appeared shortly after the objection to text messages, one of which was with Melly's mother. When Melly and his mother spoke, Melly shockingly uttered a derogatory phrase about his mother. "The jury is unlikely to forget this significant incident," he said, adding that he is evil, a monster who prefers to be alone, and that you gave me the cold shoulder because I couldn't find a blazer. Additionally, he allowed a few minor details that the defense also wanted removed. Everyone is eager to learn more about these messages, which even prompted the defense to ask for a mistrial again. However, the judge strongly rejected their request and refused to exclude this crucial piece of evidence in response to the defense attorney's argument that Melly's comments about his mother might negatively impact the jurors' perspective. The court stated that it was necessary to stop the nighttime conversations between Mr. Demons and his mother, in which he is using derogatory language and other forms of disrespect that are obviously offensive to anyone, and under the guise of attempting to demonstrate that this phone belongs to and is being used by Mr. Demons people are people who belong to and are utilized by YNW Melly. Some people feel that motivation is slowly growing here, and they don't hesitate to voice their opinions online based on one message sent. It's like dogs fighting over scraps, and I feel sorry for them all because they put material on the phone. Value over friendship. Even if the money is worth millions, it's still a trivial matter, and the victims will suffer a very sad outcome. Another person stated that this is genuine evidence, and that if you're not careful, cell phones can land you in serious trouble. Every text message, photo call, location, and movement will be used as evidence against you. And if you're accused of a crime, keeping that cell phone will land you in jail. Removed with the gun on October 26, 2018, the day that YNW Melly's two friends were brutally murdered. It was actually observed that Melly was enjoying herself at a music video shoot. Lead investigator Mark Merritt said that a video was captured and shared on Facebook on the day that YNW Juvie and YNW Sack Chaser were shot dead. The person who took the video claimed that Melly is still excited and appears unaffected by what transpired earlier in the day. Around because many people find it difficult to comprehend how YNW Melly was able to continue with such zeal in spite of the tragic events that transpired. It seems extremely shady, and I feel bad for the two families who lost their sons because of the delay. On Wednesday, the judge informed the jurors that YNW Melly's double murder trial would not resume until Monday because one of the defense attorneys became ill during lunch and was unable to return to the courtroom. Judge John Murphy apologized to the jurors for any inconvenience caused and stated that, aside from the case, YNW. Every day, Melly has to deal with more legal problems such as wrongful death lawsuits. The victims' families are suing Melly, demanding millions of dollars in damages for the deaths of their loved ones, and there is nothing we can do about it. Juvie's mother, Leandra Phillips, is in charge of fighting tooth and nail, and Jamie King, Melly's manager and mother, is being charged with concealing all the money earned from the incident. Stretched to son, but YW Melly's mother is adamant about holding him responsible for the alleged twisted plan, which stated that Melly and his team, including 100K track and band, had to kill YNW Juvie and YNW Sack Chaser in order to boost their own fame and fortune. The lawsuit also charges Melly and his associates with lying to the police and obstructing the investigation, blaming Trayvon Glass for giving false information by Jacobi Mills and others. However, YW Melly's defense team vehemently denies all of the allegations. The lawsuit will go to trial, and the plaintiffs are trying to distance themselves from any responsibility by claiming that there is no proof and that they owe the plaintiffs nothing. They are also trying to assign some guilt to YW Juvie by suggesting that he was negligent and partially to blame for his own death. If he is found guilty in the criminal trial, the amount of money that YNW Melly will have to pay out could change. This setback was undoubtedly a major blow for YNW Melly, and we'll have to buckle up and watch how things work out. We don't know what other revelations will come next week. What do you think of YNW Melly's recent news? Do you think that calling his mother disparaging would change the jurors' opinion of him? His prospects were already slim, but do you think he made them even tighter? Thank you so much for watching the entire video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. Remember to be honest and always be ready.